So this video is about marketing for fire sprinklers and about my experience with running all the marketing campaigns for fire sprinkler inspections, fire sprinkler repairs, new fire sprinkler installation, and of course dealing with the phone calls, dealing with the different kind of customers. I did make another video that covered marketing for all 6 areas of fire safety, from backflow and underground all the way to fire extinguisher, but this one is just about sprinkler, my experience with that. And so we ran Google ads, we ran Facebook ads, we ran social media, blog posts, video. The blog posts and the video campaign worked really well. Google ads worked really well, and we did so much that you really couldn't escape us online if you were looking for fire sprinkler installation or fire sprinkler contractor. The type of customers that were calling, we got some GCs calling. A lot of GCs have their favorite sprinkler company. Sometimes they would call just to get a competitive bid. You know, they'd send over the plans and we'd give them a bid without going out and looking at it if it wasn't an existing building. If it was an existing building, we'd go look at it. What we found is if it's an existing building, 9 times out of 10, we get bad information. So it's always good to go look at it. When we're running the campaign, we had set up an internet call system, like we use Dialpad or Ring Central or CallRail. So when the calls come in, they're recorded. Now, sprinkler and backflow do generate, well, sprinkler generates the least amount of calls of all the different fire safety categories, obviously because there are fewer sprinkler systems than there are fire alarms, and there are fewer fire alarms than there are fire extinguishers and kitchen systems. So we didn't get a ton of calls for sprinkler repairs or sprinkler installation. You know, on a good day, we might get 10 calls that were in regards to something to do with sprinklers, and on a bad day, maybe 0 or 1. It was just hit or miss. So we did expand the radius. Instead of just targeting like a 30-mile radius around our location, we expanded it to like 100 miles, and that got us a lot more calls. Of course, the only downside is sometimes your guys are driving pretty far out, so sometimes you got to charge for the site visit. But the kind of people we get calls from, building owners, people that are just now buying a building, people that are about to buy a building. These people are very special. They're not GCs, but they have the funding or the money to buy a building. If repairs are needed, if a rip out and replace is needed, if a brand new system install is needed with plans and permitting, they write the check. They don't have to go run and ask permission. If you want to charge them for permitting up front and design up front, you can, so that your cash flow isn't coming out of your bank account, it's coming out of theirs. If you want to charge them once you get the permit, say, hey, we need money for the pipes and heads and everything and the tools, you can get a check for that and go order it. You can set up agreements like that versus dealing with a GC that wants 30 days net, which ends up being 60 or 90 days net most of the time. So those are the kind of people that would call that we liked a lot. They don't know as much about sprinklers as a GC does, so you do spend a lot of time educating them. So the key here is to have someone on the sprinkler team that can talk to people from all walks of life. We had building owners that were from China. We had them that came from India, Africa. We had, native, people from America as well. But you got to have someone that's mentally versatile enough to explain things to people from all walks of life. You can't just have the superintendent out there talking to a customer. Things can go very badly very quickly, especially if they don't have the patience to explain stuff. And so that was one type. We did have some GCs calling. Sometimes they just want a competitive bid to compare to something else. So we'd have, the estimator and the engineer work on a bid and things like that. A lot of times it was a waste of time. It's good to have a salesperson that can kind of figure out if this is real or not, or if you actually have a chance. And then the repairs were probably the most profitable thing, and inspections were the second most profitable, only because the repair needs to happen now. You can ask them to pay a portion up front, and you can ask them to pay for the parts once you realize what parts you need. And the inspection, you can ask them to pay on the spot. You can even ask them to put a card on file so that it can be paid for immediately. So that's how you can generate some cash flow. The phone calls do need to be handled well, because people, the people that look on Google and hear about you on YouTube or Facebook, they are they're people that may not know much about sprinklers. They might be an employee that works at that company that just got told by the boss, hey, get this sprinkler inspection done. And they have no idea what they're doing. They went on Google, typed in fire sprinkler inspection company, and you showed up, and now they're calling you. So the person answering the phone needs to be ready to ask questions. And of course, the questions. How many sprinkler heads? How many floors? How big is your facility? Do you have access to the riser room? Do you have a key to the riser room? Things like that. Have a list of questions for them so they can ask the questions. Ask them to send a picture of the riser room if the person on the phone can get in there and take a picture. Ask them to send plans, even though it's very unlikely that they do have plans. And then schedule a time for someone to go out there and take a look and do the inspection. And of course, send them the estimate while they're on the phone. So the phone call is very important, right? When the person calls in, they've got to listen to what they need. And then your employee has to be able to go, okay, we can do a sprinkler inspection. We do them all the time. Let me get you a price and let me see when we can get out there. Person on the other end, the customer calling, they relax a little bit because you just told them you're going to get them the two things they need, a price and when can you get out there. And so you look on the calendar, you say, looks like we have some days this week that are available. Let me ask you about your sprinkler system to see who I need to send out there. That's when you go into all the questions. How big is the facility? How many sprinkler heads do you think you have? Riser room. How many riser rooms? How many floors? Things like that. What kind of building is it? Apartment? A warehouse? A little strip center? What is this? Auto body shop, whatever. So after that, you send them the estimate while they're still on the phone. You don't want to let them off the phone because once they hang up with you, they're not sure if they're going to get the estimate. Get their email address, send them the estimate. If they couldn't answer your questions about how big the sprinkler system is, send them a price structure estimate. And what that tells them is how much it is per riser. Like let's say it's $350 for the first riser, $175 for each additional riser. The $350 covers the first 20 sprinkler heads. After that, it's $2 a sprinkler head or whatever your price is. And tell them and write it on the estimate that this is the pricing structure. Once the actual number of sprinkler heads and risers and floors is determined, the price that comes out to will be paid same day by the customer. Have them accept it and use some kind of estimate system that requires them to put a credit card on file, because these types of things are meant to create cash flow for the business regularly. You want cash flow coming in regularly. The employees want to be paid weekly or bi-weekly. You got to get money coming in every day. And sprinkler system inspections usually go along with a backflow inspection. You can have a list of questions for your employee. When was that backflow ever inspected? Where is it located? Do you need that inspected as well? Things like that. And then after they approve the estimate or the pricing structure estimate or the actual estimate, then schedule your guys to go out there. And then it's going from there. As far as repairs go, when the customer calls in, same thing. Sorry to hear you're having a leak. Sorry to hear this is happening, whatever. We can definitely get somebody out there to help you. Let me get a little more information so I can get you an estimate or at least a pricing structure. Okay. How many heads are leaking? Where's the leak at? And what, can you send me a picture of the head that's leaking or a video? Have them send it to the dial pad number or the call rail number. You can send text to that. Don't have them send it to your employee's cell phone. The picture will get lost. And have the customer do it while they're on the phone if they can. That way, the picture comes in, your receptionist or your phone inside sales guy is still on the phone with the customer. They forward it to the sprinkler guy, the tech that's out in the field, or maybe the sprinkler supervisor. And you say, hey, I got this situation. It's over here off this street. I might be asking you to go out there later. Is that okay? Get them involved. They don't mind surprises as much, but it's just good to get them involved to keep the relationship between your phone person and the dispatcher and your sprinkler guy kind of ready for what might be happening. And get as much information as they can. And then the sprinkler guy can tell you, hey, that's this type of head or that type of head. Because sprinkler heads could be $35 or they could be $350. You never know. And some heads, You can't just change the head. You got to change an 18-inch pipe that goes up into another pipe, and you got to cut through the ceiling, and it makes a huge freaking mess, and it takes hours. So the sprinkler tech can tell you what kind of head it is, how much it might cost, and if he needs to go pick that up before they head out there. So the person on the phone is very important. You don't want your pity hire or your friend hire answering the phone. You don't want your buddy answering the phone. You need an employee that takes it seriously. You almost need an employee that's considered an inside sales employee to be answering the phone calls that are coming in from new people. Now, phone calls that come in from your regular customers that have been using you every year for 5 years, that's fine. Your laziest employee can handle that because they're just going out to do the same shit every year, right? But if you're marketing for growth and to get new customers, to build new trust in the community, you need somebody sharp and really smart who's on top of their game and takes care of themselves answering the phone. You can't just have anybody doing this because they're also coordinating. So they could be inside sales. They could also be some kind of coordinator because now, as you can see in this scenario, they're communicating with dispatch. They can see the schedule for the sprinkler guys. They know where they are. They can see the GPS on the trucks. And now they're communicating with the sprinkler foreman saying, this head might be getting changed if they agree on the estimate. How much should I estimate this to cost? Or how much should I set up the pricing structure so we can get them to approve the price and get a card on file? And how many hours do you think this is going to take? And when do you think we can get out there and do it? Things like that. So they're coordinating. So you're taking it up a notch. And I think a lot of fire inspection companies or fire safety companies, I called a lot of them. I must have called 100 of them to test them out and see how they were doing answering the phone. Man, 9 times out of 10, they're just transferring your ass around. It's just lazy pandemonium. And it's just escapism. Just, oh my God, let me transfer this person so I can get them off the phone. Well, that's money. They're just transferring money to the trash can by being lazy because they don't give a shit. So you really do want a superstar answering the phone. It's probably the biggest shocker of this whole damn video, and you had to wait a few minutes to get to it. But you don't want a lazy half-wit on the phone. You don't want somebody who's got their kids screaming in the background answering the phone. You don't want somebody who, can't work more than 5 hours a day answering the phone. You want a pro. So anyway, they can coordinate it, get it out there. This is good money. This is good daily money. And it's a really good practice to send that estimate while they're still on the phone with the customer, get them to approve it and put their credit card on file. The reason you want your phone person to stay on the phone with the customer when they're sending them the estimate, number one, to make sure they got the email address right. I've messed up the email address before doing this. And number two, to ask them, hey, are you able to approve this now or do you have to go show it to your boss? If they say, no, I'm approving it right now on the phone, while they're still on the phone, you can let dispatch or the sprinkler, project manager or whoever's in your chain of command on all this know she just approved it. Her card's on file. She's willing to pay the price we just came up with or the price that's on our books. When can you get out there? When they tell you, you tell her they'll be out there on this day at this time or they'll be out there today. Sometimes you can get overtime pay. If there's water going everywhere, you can get overtime pay. Or you can tell them, hey, we can send somebody out there to shut it off and look at it, and then we'll be back tomorrow to fix it. And so we need you to pay for the visit today, and then we'll send you another estimate for tomorrow. So you can even break it out like that. But one of the goals of the person answering the phone is to get payments today for work done today. So you don't have to have a whole collections department trying to do 30-day net BS all the time. And then you have millions of dollars in accounts receivable after 5 years because people just didn't want to do the whole process. And as far as the customer goes, they're very happy staying on the phone with you until the complete process is complete. They don't want to get off the phone early on this phone call and tell their boss, yeah, I told them what was wrong. They're going to call me back. They look like jackasses. They want to get off the phone and tell their boss, yes, they gave me a price. They can be here this day. We just got to approve this. They look a lot smarter. So don't be afraid to keep someone on the phone. This phone call I'm describing lasts about 4 to 6 minutes. I've listened to thousands of recorded calls, and the good ones where you're actually going through the whole process, getting all the information, getting pictures, sending an estimate, getting it approved. It comes back. You get them on the calendar, 6 minutes at the most. It feels like 30 minutes because I also did answer the phones before I started training other people how to do it. But when it's done correctly, all day, every day, it brings in a lot of daily revenue. And you don't need as many people in the accounting and collections department to manage all this, because it's really a waste of money sometimes. So let's see. So there's inspections. We covered repairs. We covered new installations. And by the way, the closing ratio on new installations was traditionally 1 or 2 out of 20. So another thing about the sprinkler side, let me level out my camera here, about the sprinkler side is this is the most freelance heavy side of the fire safety industry. You know, your fire alarm guys can be kind of freelance, but it's kind of risky because all the stuff they run around out there and do could easily backfire on them, and alarms can go off, and the alarm's being monitored. So someone could find out that they are actually freelancing. But sprinkler, they can go to a site, and if you haven't sent an estimate to them and they're not in your CRM, they can go to a site, look around and go, you know what, nobody even knows I'm here hardly. You know what, Mr. Customer, this is going to cost $15,000, but you know what, if I do it on the side after hours with my guys, I'll just charge you $9. It's the easiest one to freelance because there's not a whole lot that's tracked. You know, it is connected to the fire alarm, but if they can get one of their other buddies to come out there and disable the fire alarm and then re-enable it for a little bit, they can do well. So you can spend a lot of money marketing fire sprinkler, and if you don't have a tight eye on your sprinkler crew, they can do a lot of side gigs, and you can just wonder why your sprinkler department isn't making a lot of money. It's really good if the owner has a history of fire sprinkler work as well. So that's my experience with fire sprinkler marketing, turning the calls into daily cash flow and into large deals. If you need help with setting up the marketing or help training the phone people, give me a call. My number's on the screen. Thanks.